we are Coping Life Talk. I'm Dr. Lydia Istomina, and our co-hosts are Candy Sheehan and Scott Kiddle. Our guest today is Fumi Matsumoto Cheever, and hi, Fumi. We know her as the Director of Global Engagement of the Missouri Western State University. And we know Fumi because you were with your students once in our Francis Street First Church for the panel discussion, and it was an awesome presentation. So today, Fumi, who is, as I said, global director of the global engagement, will introduce us to and challenge us, I believe, on the topic of peace building in the community. But first of all, I will say a few words who we are. Our Coping Life Talk was started a year and a half ago from our home with Scott Kiddle, who is my husband. And we started with the simple equipment and just trying to help people cope during this COVID time. Surprisingly, it brought us a large audience of people who listened to us, which was something really amazing because I thought, who would listen to our stories? But people did. And then, Candy, thank you so much for joining us. We started this interesting program when we invited people from our community. Non-profit organization leaders, church leaders, and ordinary people who shared their stories. And it ended with the Missouri Conference giving us a grant for this program. So today we continue talking about coping. Fumi, you wanted to talk about peace building. Why building? Why not keeping? Because it is such a diverse world and people argue until their teeth fall out, I would say, because it's so much anger on the social media and also in a personal discussion. Could you help us why it is building?
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me in this conversation. I'm delighted to be a part of this podcast, and I was very eager to speak with everybody in the panel. And this is a great way to reach out to from community to all over the world. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are. And thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for having me in this great opportunity. So I just wanted to start with peace building. I am immigrant in the United States, and I moved to different states to states. And everywhere I moved, I feel like there's a few works needed to be happen. And thank you, Lydia, to mentioning about social media. This is not the 20 years ago I moved to United States. Now it's very easy to get some information, easy to reach out to the people, easy to listen any other story from everywhere. However, it is very hard to see what is the truth and what is the core, what is the actually happening. Because the lots of time, if you listen media, it can be one way or it can be one-sided. But the building and getting some connection in personal level, that's kind of like the way to overcome some stereotyping or misconception, which usually people have from media or some other tools, not necessarily getting information from the person or real story.
And thank you for that, because when I started thinking about the topic term, how we formulated it, building, it made me really think. And I started reading about United Nations and what people do around the world, including in our community here in St. Joseph. So I found there are 4 different terms. Peace building is one of them, but also peacemaking, peacekeeping, and peace enforcement. So, and they all have different functions. And of course, as we talk about peacemaking, this is, I think, about intervention when there is conflict already in development. And of course, peacekeeping is when we try to build boundaries, certain boundaries that people understand how to act and how to talk. But peace building is the most attractive. I think. And maybe that's why you chose that, because it is before anything occurs, before people become flammable. And so I just really interested in that ways and tools that you, I'm sure, will be sharing with us today.
Of course, like you hear all those war and conflicts in different country or between different tribe or between different the nations or between beyond the religious reason. Then you kind of hear from that, then you feel like, oh, this is far from us. It's nothing we can do about it. However, I think peace building is starting from surrounding you. So you have to start from somewhere, and you feel like you can be a part of the change of the world. But if you hear the large scale, it's kind of hard to understand. Or maybe I am very powerless. I cannot do anything to change anything what happening on the other side of the world. But the truth is, I don't think that's the truth. But that's, you have to build your peace between you and your community. Then you feel you're very safe in the environment. That's the start, because you want to have your child, you want to have your grandchild to have the environment which they feel peace or they feel safe. Then they feel friends with everybody, no matter what their culture or what language they're speaking, what they looks like. You want to have that environment. So you have to start with somewhere, which is you can start with your environment, your neighborhood, your city, your village, your town. So I think peace building is very attractive word for me to say this is not like something you cannot anything about it. This is something you have to make action, and you can make action, and you can make a change.
That leads me to a question, Fumi, because I, I live in a very, I want to live in a diverse area. I really do. I love diversity. But yet, when I look at myself, I live in, my neighbors are all pretty white. I go to a church where it's pretty white. I want you to understand, I loved having you and the kids in our building. To me, that was a thrill. And so I don't exactly know, how do I build this peace and how do I make a connection when I feel like I'm stuck in a place where I don't see as much diversity as I'd like to. How do you reach out, or how do you do that peacemaking when everyone I look at looks just like me? Okay?
I believe everybody living in St. Joseph, am I correct?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how diverse this town is. It's just because you living in certain area of town and you have a friends of certain people. But if you go a little bit outside, you see a lot of people from different background. If you go to a certain elementary school, you'd be surprised how many languages are speak in that school. And a university can be a little bit silo because we're kind of in own little community, own little town. Candy, like you said, you're kind of living on own little church, and that's your kind of comfort zone. But I think those dots have to be opened up a little bit more to reach out to understand each other. I think there's a also existing events, but not necessarily each other to invite each other. I hope something like that could happen a little bit often in this town. So it's not like you feel like I'm living in a very certain neighborhood and I don't see anybody doesn't look like me. But it is actually, this town is very diverse, and you be surprised. I was very surprised to see. I was driving by some park and I see the lots of people who is wearing a traditional clothes, which is, I didn't know how many people from that area, that community, in our community, coming from that certain area of the grove and living in St. Joseph. But you be surprised how diverse this town is. Lydia, I think it was a great opportunity for invited us to be on your church, so your church members know we are here in town. students are very new to this city because they come to pursue their degree, so they kind of come and go. But those students are here as a part of the community during their studying in the in Missouri Western State University. So hopefully that can be more often integrated, and those interactions would happen. So you get to know us, and we get to know everybody on town as well too.
Fumi, we had an interesting experience many months ago, of course, before COVID, at Francis Street. We were engaged with a Micronesian church, and we tried to worship together, but we found that worship styles were very different, and folks tended to prefer their own worship style, and so worshiping together didn't really happen very long at all, did they, Candy? And so we found that culture was very different, even though we worshiped the same God and had many of the same beliefs, but the cultural differences were somewhat challenging from time to time.
Maybe you can make a step by step. It's not necessary to see the big picture, but like making a friendship first before you start worshiping together. Something
Yes.
like having some potluck together so you can exchange. I mean, food is a big part of the culture, and lots of churches actually have a potluck after they're worshiping, or it's kind of like having a family dinner or family lunch together.
Oh, yes.
That's the one way to kind of get together before you get to have little to conquer the one big goal. So if you jump into something like, oh, let's worship together, that might be two quick steps to make this to go forward, but maybe little by little, so they feel comfortable, they get to know your group and you get to know their group. What's the comfortable level? Maybe they don't even feel comfortable to worship in the future, but you still start building some relationship and a friendship on a level of beyond the worship. So I think it might be have some different way to reach out and understand each other. Worship is one way, but there's other way around, maybe like going to the picnic or having a potluck or something like it can
It
be
can be
more
more
so
so
personal
personal
level.
level. That, and they brought so much joy to us. Just seeing their faces and love and laughter, we shared a bond, even though we didn't exactly know how to connect, and it was something that was just precious to us. And the thing that I don't want to use COVID as an excuse, but COVID stopped so many of our plans because we just could not continue things the way we wanted to. But we just have to branch out and now look for other ways. And so it's regrouping. That's for a lot of people. It's not just us, but we have to try again and look for other ways to connect, I know.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fumi, and thank you, Candy and Scott, for this conversation, because it's true for me that if we jump into something big, then we might experience failure and then feel discouraged. But we also have good experiences with the Micronesian community, and exactly what you just said about some, not necessarily potluck, but we had the ice cream social once, and at the same time our Micronesian friends had their women's conference. And it was amazing because when women started dancing, some of our members jumped into that circle. We had no idea what dance elements we're supposed to perform, and that's what Micronesian women, they were just laughing, and we had such a good time. And of course, their kids are amazing, like Kenji said, and eating ice cream together was a moment of gathering and sharing. Also, it's very interesting that a few words about worship, how that can really separate people, because when we had our Christmas service and we invited them, we've learned that the time perception is so different for a community like Micronesian. So when we come sharp, as Westerners, they come on a different frame. And so right in the middle of our service, suddenly we started having people entering, bringing equipment in because they were in a program. And it upset some people. And I understand, but at the same time, in the end, we had a good worship service. But also what I wanted to say that you tell me if it is the right approach what we try to do from your experience. Candy helped us to connect with the Wesley Learning Center for immigrants who take their citizenship classes and English as a second language. So we try to see how can we partner, and so we ended offering childcare for young families who often drop off because they cannot complete classes. They don't have a space and place and money to have childcare. So we announce twice a week that we can take their children and take care of them while they are in a class. So do you think that is a good approach?
Absolutely. I think that is very smart way to build the trust as well too. Because if mom is not trusting somebody, they don't want to let the children to watch somebody who they don't know. But I think building trust is one big way to them feel safe, them feel comfortable, them getting know. And the children is always kind of like the first one, open-minded, and doesn't matter who. I mean, if children trust somebody, the parents will be kind of like a start opening up. So I think that's a great way to offer the support and showing you're there for them when they need some help. Building trust is very big part. It goes with our students as well too. Um, if you don't build the trust, they won't tell you what they need. So I think that that's a great way to reach out and listening what they need and providing what they need as well too.
Thank you. See, Candy, you had a great idea. Go ahead, Candy.
The other idea I had that I really wanted to do, after you were here with the kids, and really they seemed to enjoy being around us, and it wasn't an act totally, but they were so gracious and so fun and such good kids. I wanted to know how to continue a way of supporting them, and I really wasn't sure how to do that. I felt like I want us to be a very open place where we welcome all people from all different countries and all walks of life. We named the downstairs our International Fellowship Hall. And I want it to be that. I don't want it to be just Micronesians or just any girl. I mean, I want it to be everyone. But yet I didn't know what do those college students need or how could we make a bond with them and stay connected. I was just very curious what you thought might work without being pushy or without being, annoying to someone, but to be open. And I'll listen.
I think it's not necessarily the students, the people's interest in come and go. They have a different schedule as well too. If you expect somebody to be there all the time, or if you expect to be that place being used all the time, I think you feel like you're going to have some disappointment in the future, because that's the same on me when I think that's a great idea to have some events or to provide some activity or to do the support. But truth is, people are very busy. They have different interests. It's not necessarily your interest, it's their interest. So, and you feel like, oh, I'm doing something for nothing. So you will get some disappointment. But I think to continue and keep providing the same thing, if you believe something in very strongly, then your word is getting out and you will get more interest. If you have one person, the word from the people is stronger than any advertisement. And if you trust something on one person, especially somebody who is on a leader or somebody who is on a big part of a community, if you get interest of that person is going to be a good promoter of your intention or your activity or whatever you're doing. So I think do not get disappointed if you do not get interest from many people. But I think keep opening your praise or keep opening your program. I think that's the key. Interest is come and go. That's very nature, and don't get frustrated. That's what I feel like.
Wow, that is huge because so often we do plan things, to try to branch out into the community, and we feel like, oh, very good program, very good idea, and it doesn't work as well as we hope. And so that frustration, you are so right. We do get discouraged, and knowing how to do that, that's why I always wondered. But maybe they're too busy. I always felt like if I could connect with one of those students, for instance, and they told me what they were interested in, that might work. I want them to tell me. I don't want to tell them what's a good program or what would be fun. I want to hear from them what they might be interested in. I guess that's a connection I'm looking for too. How would I do that?
Yeah, I think every time when I do events, I'm not going to say what I want. I'm going to listen from students what they want, so they can be a part of the program. That means like they are taking ownership and leadership on that event. Therefore, the people thinks like, oh, I'm part of the event. I can be responsible of such and such, which is could be like a marketing or inviting their students. So every time I did something with students and students take a leadership and I pointed the person, okay, I'm going to listen to you and what you said, I'm going to make it happen, but you have to be a big part of this one because I'm taking a lot of, I'm leaning on you to make this one happen. Then that way, I think they feel more obligated, they feel more responsible, they feel more leadership, they feel more control what they're doing. It's not like I was told to do, I was asked to be there. So just listening from listening from the population you wants to be in a part of it, and let them make as a part of the process and in the planning, and let them make as a leader, let them make as a planner, let them make as an organizer. So it's not like you are giving to them, but they are making their own thing.
So that's what it is, making and building. So because making is building, creating something. So what I hear, and that's a great approach, that instead of offering students, for example, or to our community what you like or we like, and we think it's exciting and it will excite everybody, but it does not sometimes. And that's why I think you suggest to start where they are and hear what they are passionate about and interested in doing, right? I have a question to you, Fumi. Could you give us an example? What really shaped you as who you are? So passionate about building community and also peace building, not just building community, but peace building. So, what happened in your life that made you think and work on that?
So I am from Japan, and when I was living in my country, I didn't see much of the people doesn't look like me. Everybody is Japanese, and they grow up in Japan. They do speak same language. Then I gradually have start having a friends from different countries that makes me interested in learning from people. Then I moved to United States. Then I was exposed to a lot of culture, in lots of people. Then because I was international students, I was friend with the international students, which is not necessarily only American, but the people from all over the world. I still keep those friendship with them. Then that clicked me. Like I always see something like a war in Israel or the Middle East, and I ask my friends from that area, like, why you having war so long time and cannot finish it? And they start explaining about the history, which is I'm not like I wasn't aware 100% aware of what actually happening in person to person or people to people or on the history wise. So that just opened my eyes, and like this is actually the quicker and better and the smarter way to learn about the culture and the people and the history instead of going to the textbook or going to the social media or going to something else. Then every time I meet with people, I'm learning from them. So I thought that opportunity should be open to everybody. And I have been living in very countryside of United States, and every time I hear, oh, our neighborhood is not diverse, and it's kind of like the same thing. St. Joseph, people who living in this area, it's like, oh, our places is not diverse. But it's not necessary those people from different country are diverse neither. Somebody like myself, I'm from very homogeneous the country, which is like I didn't have any diversity, but now I feel like I'm more aware of the community, aware of the diverse, and those things. It's not necessary you have to live on certain community which is very diverse, but you can learn yourself as well too, how you open-minded, how you accept difference in similarity, how you tolerance and anxiety, all those kind of stuff. It's not like you have to live on, you will learn just because you're living on a diverse area. It's not like that. You have to be ready, you have to be learning, you have to be prepared to be that person. So that is kind of like my passion to be, because I have a child who does look like me. I want him to feel comfortable. I want him to be a friend of everybody. Um, then that's for me now. It's very important to have that community available for him to grow up, and also I want other people to learn from him as well too. So peace building in my community is everywhere I move. I think that's my big goal. I want to be step by step. It's very small, but surely I want to make it happen everywhere, anywhere I move. So that's my passion. And gradually I get to reach out to the community, little bits and pieces of community to say some words. So that's my goal. Small goal, but that's surely my goal.
And this is a wonderful goal. Go ahead, Candy.
I understand how you came to be so interested in peace building, and that makes perfect sense to me, and I love that idea. How in the world did you end up in St. Joe, Missouri, though? That's the part I don't get. I can see you on the either coast, that makes sense, but St. Joe, Missouri, not so much.
I think since I'm from different country and my side of the family is still back in Japan, I don't have any attachment to a certain city in United States. And also I think everywhere you live, you will find the shining part. It's not necessary you have to be in San Francisco, you have to be in New York, you have to be in Chicago, because those are very well-known big city. But I think there's so many cities in towns in the United States which has a lot to offer. I think St. Joseph is one of them. And also when I heard about St. Joseph and Missouri Western State University, I thought that was a little rock, but still not diamond rock, but it's not diamond yet. So you can come and trying to polish a little bit so you can shine. It I really like a challenge as well too. So in that kind of made me move about this city. It has a great potential, but not necessarily people know about it. But I want to be a part of the potential to make it well known in the other community or other world too.
It is so wonderful to hear from you, a young woman from Japan, to be excited about a small town like St. Joseph and about Missouri State University. Because I remember once, by absolutely chance, I got a T-shirt with the emblem, with the logo of Missouri State University, and came to church, and people were just got ecstatic. And I had no idea why, but they said, your t-shirt. I said, what about my t-shirt? And they said, you have a logo of the Missouri Western State University. And that made them happy. And I think it is important to be proud of the place where you live, and also to welcome people from wherever they come. Because if you hear in St. Joseph, go to Sam's, go to, like I remember my husband and I went to Five Guys, and here we sit and there are two different languages coming from two different directions. And we were like, wow, we're like in New York sitting here. And those people were from one group from Germany. People came to build that packing company. But also another group was from Ethiopia. And once I remember, Scott, maybe you can help me, we met a group of young guys who spoke a language even my husband, who has a good ear for languages, could not place. So we had to ask them. And they hardly spoke English. And do you remember, they came from a very, very small country in Africa, east part of Africa. Am I right, Scott?
Yes. Was it Ethiopia or Somalia?
Not Ethiopia, Somalia. Because Ethiopians have a specific like facial features that we've learned to recognize them. But Somalia. And it's hard for people to come here, and especially from warm countries where they have no need in warm clothes. But imagine new language, new clothes, transportation, because that could be an issue. And I think, could you tell us a little more about this, not just survival, but and it is coping for many immigrants to learn to live in a colder area, plus where you cannot just take a bus and go where you want. So you have to rely on somebody's help. So could you talk a little about that with your students?
So I'm going to speak about our students, which is, like I said, sometimes it's very silo because I'm focusing on the student population. It's not necessarily the other immigrants on this area. It's not necessarily the same, but I'm going to speak about the students. So our students, some of them are coming from large city like Beijing or Kuala Lumpur, or it's large city which has all those public transportation. Some students are coming from smaller town, which is kind of like a St. Joseph, so they are not surprised to have public transportation. Then students are here for 4 years or 2 years in short term, and they not necessarily have the car or those need because it's very expensive as well too. But for students, because we invite them and we include them like international family, we are coming from different country, we are coming from different background, we do speak different language, but we call ourselves as a family. So they feel comfortable to share their needs, share their challenge, or offer some help. We have all those group chats. So if somebody who doesn't have a car, instantly they said, oh, I would like to go to the Walmart. And somebody who has a car, they offer those help. So I don't even need to intervene anything, but they built their community, they built their family together, and they help each other. So I think my take is just to introduce them and invite them in our family so they feel comfortable. But after that, it's just take off. They build their peace building in their term, and they're quite well and well functioned family, even though they're coming from different parents. They help each other. And those students who have a car understand the needs of who doesn't have a car, or understand who needs some help because they were there in before. So they are willing to help. They're willing to take a time. They're willing to go extra mile to support each other. So I think that community we built, the family we has in here has been fantastic. I think the positive part of us is we are not large institution. We are very small. So we pretty much know each other. So we kind of like know each other, and we see each other, we observe each other. if they feel they need help, if they need extra help, the students are very comfortable telling me. I always say that I'm not mom, I'm too young for your mom, but I'm your auntie. But if you feel comfortable, tell me. So it's not like that students who really need help tell me, but the second student who know that person need help kind of alert me, and oh, maybe she need extra help, so I can step in. But at that point, it's very much like that person very need help, and I step in very quick. But otherwise, the family function is working very well, and they are taking care of each other. Big sister, big brother, younger brother, they have been great. And also the students, I'm seeing the students growing up from the younger brother to the older brother and taking care of those each other. The younger one, I knew they're no younger anymore. If you see the younger one coming in, they are like becoming a big brother and taking care of those younger one. I have seen those tradition, I have seen those changes, I have seen those development, and that has been fantastic. And saying ourselves for the international family and welcoming them, that grouping, that bond we have, it's fantastic.
It is truly fantastic. Go ahead, Candy.
I love the idea of family. To me, that is just wonderful. That's what I would wish for all of those kids. I wonder if you have been impacted by the fact, we went through that period. I'm afraid we might be in a period where immigrants maybe looked down on, or maybe there are people in the community that aren't welcoming. And I hate to even say those words, but have the enrollment of foreign students gone down? Is it still steady? Is it rising? I want them to feel welcomed, and I want to be that presence that would always help if I could. You know what I mean? But I was afraid there might be some backlash against immigrants, and I don't know. I'll let you talk about that.
It has been challenging, not necessarily our institution, but the U.S. institution all over. There have been quite a bit of that change of the immigration and the regulation. Who has been, I mean, COVID wasn't helping neither. So it has been very challenging. Lots of university has been seeing some raise on enrollment from the international and different countries, but US is also competing with other countries as well too. I believe before the COVID, the enrollment from international students in New Zealand or Australia has been up, or even like China has been doing very good on the increasing number of international students, or any other countries. So the enrollment of international students, U.S. is not only competing U.S. universities, but competing with different countries as well too. So it has been very challenging. And also what media are saying about the immigrants in the United States, or some incidents happening in different cities, that has been giving fears or uncertainty for their parents if they want to send their kids to United States. So it has been a little bit the back and forth, and has been not easy for us. And talking about Missouri Western, it is also has been challenging to increase number of international students. It's not necessarily we're not trying, but something unfortunate challenges, something like some embassy has been closed and not able to issue any visa because of the COVID, or some country only issue certain number of visa, or issue the visa for the certain university. I don't think that's the truth, but that's kind of like I'm hearing. So it has been not necessarily what university doing, but there's just so many layers of that challenge. The funnel would be very small to come to have students actually comes to us. So that has been all over the United States, has been challenging. But I think, like I said, I am immigrant. I'm not having a U.S. citizenship, so I don't have a right to vote. But the last time when last Halloween I had, my Halloween costume was have those I voted sticker. So that was my Halloween costume, and I encourage everybody to go vote because I don't have a right to vote, but I only can do encourage people to speak up what they right, the U.S. citizen to vote, go for vote. So that is part of the peace building to share your voice. Them choose your leader. So I think that's something again you can make the changes on the United States or of the world too.
And this is an excellent point for me. And I want to go a little back when you talked about this funnel that is connected not necessarily to the efforts of the university, because the university I know tries to go as wide as possible. But for example, I'm from Russia and the United States. So, when it is a political tension, it says nothing about educating children and the young men and women, but it is about suddenly building, kind of erecting the wall to show the displeasure with a certain political actions or statements that, for example, United States allowed itself to make public. And so during the Trump era, of course, Russia warmed up, and maybe at that time it was possible to get students, and the embassy was issuing visas because you work with visas and you work with entering visa, educational visa for students, right? But now suddenly any investigation or suddenly that challenges the Russian government, of course, only recent, and of course COVID on the top. So then suddenly all the embassies were closed, and you cannot get visa even if you have relatives in the United States. So, and especially for students. But I hope this time of another sort of a mini Cold War will pass. But that applies, since it's United States, I think it applies to China, applies to many other countries that suddenly stop issuing visas. So the funnel, unfortunately, is affected not only by COVID, but also politics. And it's very sad, and it should not be. But also, I wanted to applaud to you about your Halloween costume. That you encourage people to express themselves when it comes to vote. Because even recently I've read a book of Tech Sample who talks about just Americans, about the white working class and how diverse even that class is when it comes to vote. And it could be about people's disappointment, about their income, about losing a job. But imagine when it comes to young people who were so passive when it comes to vote. I'm glad that you brought it up. And I'm glad that you educate your students, because if we do not articulate our opinion, nothing will change. We will continue being where we are. But I also wanted to, if I may at this point, to go back to when you talked about being not like a mama, but sort of for your students, because we had during COVID a student from South Korea. And I had to make an effort to really pronounce his name right, Byung Sung. And he plays clarinet and the piano. And when we were streaming our videos and could not meet in person, he several times substituted for our musician, and he was amazing. And also such a nice spirit, very polite and very considerate, right, Candy? We loved him. But you brought up transportation. And that's another way of coping. You're right. And I'm glad your students and you help each other, because he could not come as often because of not having a car. But that's another connection of an element of peace building, because if we build peace, then we can avoid peace reinforcement and making and but building has so many opportunities and layers. So that was my comment, and I'm glad that you shared your story. How do you see that university can be engaged and invested more into our community in St. Joseph?
So I'm always encourage students to be an educator because they are the speaker of their country. It's not necessary they can be one person on campus and representing their country, but to if they feel like it's some stereotyping, some misconception about their country or their continent or their culture, I'm encourage them to speak out and collect and educate people so they will have right information. um, our events, when we have events, we are always open to community, and we are encourage community members to come and join us. Again, the transportation is very much issue for the international students to going out to the community, but when we have some events, we are strongly encourage everybody to join us. um, and reaching out to the community, inviting, that might be a little bit challenging because I might only have a limited number of the people who I can reach out. But again, that's the one way. And when we have some requests from community organization or members, we are always trying to arrange something to go out on the community as well too. So please feel free to include us. If we can be a part of any event, we will be happy to be there as well too.
And that is wonderful because we have quite a few events that Candy was talking about in our International Hall of Fellowship. And of course, if your students have children, I will send you the schedule that we can take them at least in the evening when maybe students need to study, or maybe they have a workshop, or maybe they prepare for a presentation. Just at least twice a week they can bring a drop of their children. And we hope that this program will grow. But also, maybe we can partner with your department because we try to develop, we call it Action Boutique, which is a hands-on activity center for children. And this is where we want to have, we are working on creating stations where children can learn math, they can learn chemistry, puzzles, and sound, and some aerodynamic. But so maybe you can give us ideas that people from other cultures will appreciate more than what we have in mind, since you said that we better start where people are and listen. Right? So maybe you can give us some ideas that will be more international and emphasize our focus on building peace in the community. That would be really something so beneficial for not just us, but if we really invest ourselves into this ministry and into this service to offer something that will be beneficial for all people, not just a certain category. Any questions, Scott and Candy, you have at this point?
Yes, I thought I would ask the question about, and perhaps you're not prepared for this, but somehow I think you'll have a very good answer. I recall back in college, I was told that, oh, you're such a peacemaker. And I thought, well, that's just wonderful. You know, the Bible says, blessed is the peacemaker, right? But as I've gotten older, I've come to the realization that part of my practice of being a peacemaker is avoiding conflict, avoiding it like the plague. And so I personally have been challenged to learn more about conflict management and perhaps reframing my own thinking about the benefits that can come from good conflict management. So when you talk about building peace, clearly in any community where there's human beings that come together, conflict is going to arise. What thoughts do you have on that subject? What tips would you offer?
I think that it's I'm going to bring up my my conflicts with myself and my partner, my husband. We are coming from totally different background, and it's day-to-day thing. But we understand differences. We understand that we do not agree with everything. But I think it's healthy to speak up and share what you thought, and understand where they're coming from, or where that idea coming from, how those are different. And maybe I'm the part person who likes to kind of discuss and also argue and to see what's the best fit on the situation. So I think too afraid of the conflict, it is going to be kind of like you are going to agree with something you're not 100% on that way. So it's better to provide a safe environment and for you and the other side to speak up with what you think, and maybe you understand that might not going to be agree with everything, but you might find something, their side of the argument and your side of the argument. Maybe you can talk about it to pick and choose what's the best for the situation. I think that comes to the culture as well too. I am coming from certain Japanese culture and I moved to the United States. I have seen something I totally do not understand what US culture is, but also I see something I question about the Japanese culture. My dealing with that conflict is I pick and choose and balance those two cultures. What is the best for the situation? What is the best for myself? What is the best for the community? So it's not like you are very stubborn in the one side or very stubborn on what you think, but you're trying to open up your mind a little bit to listen from the other side, to see the stuff from the other side. But I think you might have to have that opportunity to the other part of that argument as well too, or somebody who is disagreeing with you, to see this is what I feel and what I see. It might be not seeing the same way, but in some way, do you think we can see something in the middle to make it the better in this situation?
That's wonderful. Thank you. And listening is such an important part of that, isn't it? And asking the question maybe, so why do you think that way? What events in your life, what reading, what experiences brought you to forming that opinion? And maybe if I gain that understanding, I might think about it differently, or maybe we just agree to disagree and go on peacefully, right?
I just don't want to be very quiet about it, but I want to share what I see and I want to see what the other people see as well too. If you have some uncertainty in the middle, I don't think peace building is going to be truly happening. But I think even though agree to disagree, you see the other side, why they're disagreeing or why it's not going certain direction, and you understand why or what can be the next steps. If you see truly, I think it makes you feel more comfortable, or you feel more committed, or you feel more it can go move forward in somewhere or backward if that have to be. But if you have some uncertainty in between, you feel hesitated to do any action, you hesitated to, you just said, oh, okay, but it's not necessary you are all committed to that action.
Very good. That was very helpful. I appreciate that so much. Looking for common ground is something I'm really working on right now, trying hard. I'm like you, Scott, though. I would avoid conflict at all cost. I really would. But I'm learning. It's something I think you have to work on all your life. I truly do, because we all have our opinions. Thank you, Fumi. That was very helpful.
And for me, when when Scott talked about ask a question, being a peacekeeper, peacemaker, is it a good idea? And then you learned, Scott, that it's not. I really appreciate your answer and your kind of developed answer that you experience in your life. What is best? And so speaking up is important. Because what happens when we suppress during the conversation our opinion, two things happen. And since we are on a coping topic. It is, first of all, we hurt ourselves because a partner, and Scott and I went through that since we are from different cultures, through many, many discussions until I realized that I need to speak up because otherwise Scott does not even have a clue why I get some kind of a resentment. But that's an inevitable step after we do not express, and then we become kind of upset inside, then gradually we become angry, and then it moves on to a next stage, which is absolutely traumatic, when we become resentful. And when we become resentful, if we talk about community, then people become hateful. And that's why, to avoid all these things, peace building is essential, because otherwise we will have to become peacekeepers and a kind of peace reinforcement practice in the area when people move through all the stages, and from resentment they become hateful. But also it is important when we speak up, then we let our partner or people who live around know our position. Otherwise, it is not fair to them, like it was not fair to Scott not to know what I'm thinking, right? So he's oblivious, and I'm absolutely in fumes and on fire because he does not understand me, right, Scott? And it took us 17 years of marriage when we finally hear each other. Not easy still sometimes, right? But and then I feel good because I express myself. Then it takes another person to start processing, oh, she does not, surprise, she does not think like I do, right? Why didn't she tell me 17 years ago? And that is important because otherwise some conflicts are so old that you cannot even find the roots. So peace building instead of peacemaking, peace reinforcement, and peacekeeping, I think, is much better and safer and deeper. And Fumi, I'm really so impressed with how deep our discussion today is, because you gave us so many, not just ideas and not just tips, but really at depth of how to look at other people, since we live in this diverse society, and also helping us see that Saint Joseph is not that kind of homogenic. It is so diverse. And to my surprise, when I came and Scott came to this city, we were told that there are 32 languages and dialects here. That's a lot. And so we are in a very diverse place, and the skill of peace building is essential. And you gave us today such a good story and the guidance of how to be peace builders. So anything else you want to add before we will start wrapping it up?
Well, again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I delighted to talk to everybody, and I truly enjoy all the questions I was asked, and sometimes thinking, but not necessarily I had the opportunity to speak up in other people. So that was plus win-win for me. So I truly thanks for the opportunity. And also, Lydia, you mentioned St. Joseph has been very diverse community. You just don't know how diverse it is until you see that certain community. There's a spot in area. It's not necessarily those people are interacting each other, but they're kind of like a spot in one spot of the city, one spot of the city. So hopefully we can be the builder to have built the bridge in between those communities, so we can have more interaction, we can have more the friendship going on, so we can have more diverse the events, so kids can get to know each other, the adult can get to each other. And I truly wants to have more different restaurant in town, so they can have something like that too.
And that is so true. And I think one of the examples of restaurants is Marco Polo, and which is an idea of really how to fuse different tastes and different flavors and spices and meats and vegetables. And I think it's a good illustration of what Saint Joseph is. When we, without fighting, we just simply enjoy eating this food and meals that are prepared because Marco Polo went to China and to the East and then brought back the spices and started putting together something that probably was was never eaten together. And I think without knowledge, St. Joseph community is already challenged and is already practicing this sense of diversity even when they go eating out. But also, Fumi, at the end, I want to give a huge credit to Missouri Western University and to what you do with the students, because I went to two events at the university. One was at your department when it was a variety of food, a variety of different cultures in that representation of a potluck that university offered. Could you tell us what is the closest event, maybe 2 or 3, that will happen at the university that we can invite our viewers today to come and join? Because I thought it is a closed event, but no, it was open for the community.
So, Lydia, I think you're talking about international fair, which we had to postpone the last year due to the COVID. But we're trying to bring it back this year. Tentative date is November 10th at the Folkestone. So the students from different countries will represent their country on a booth. I ask students to dress up, or I ask students to represent their country anywhere they want to, but they have a space to represent their country. They have a time for them to speak with the visitors. Those are open for students and also the public. This is a great way to know and travel without jet lag, without the travel fee, but you can go around the 30 countries within like 2 hours. So we are strongly encourage everybody on the community member to come and talk to the students as well too. They are eager to talk to the community member and share about their culture, what their country like from their words. So again, we are tentative to have those events in November 10th. In the past, we pretty much had some finger food from different countries. That's also the good, because you never try something different countries food, but tasting that, you can say, oh, I like this food, or I don't like those food, but I tried it. So something like that would be great. And I would love to have community member to join us. Again, we are trying to have it on November 10th, which is at the Folkestone Center on campus. We will send out some invitation to your members so you will know better and you will know more about this event.
Thank you, Fumi. And also to challenge you, since we are talking about peace building in the community, will it be possible one day to take this event out and we can host it in our church? We have a beautiful camper hall, and your Ferguson hall is wonderful, but also we can bring the community from Museum Hills and from the downtown of St. Joseph. Do you think that will be a possibility when, of course, it is COVID safe?
That would be an exciting offer. I think it might be great to have something like a larger scale in the community events, even because our students are limited on certain countries. But you guys kind of mentioned about Pacific Islanders or somebody from Africa, which we don't have students from those countries. But if we can include them on a part of the events, we can learn from them as well too, which is, I'm always learning something new from people, and I'm eager to learn from the community member as well. So that would be fantastic offer, and I would like to take a challenge.
Thank you. So we are glad to challenge you, and please continue challenging us. Thank you, Fumi, for this wonderful podcast, and we are looking forward to continue our relationship, building relationship. Thank you. Thank you, Candy, and thank you, Scott. We are Coping Live Talk, and we will see you next Saturday at 5 p.m. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.